everybody, welcome back to Murder in Retrograde. Today we are talking about the most recent updates on the Maya Millete case out of Chula Vista, California, as well as a somewhat similar story, the case of Suzanne Morphew, who is another missing woman. So let's get right into it. I'm Brittany.
I'm Jenna.
And this is Murder in Retrograde.
Hello, hello. Okay, so I wanted to start. So if you are new to our channel for whatever reason, we have covered this case pretty extensively every few episodes. In the past, I would say 5 episodes or so. There's kind of updates that as we've gotten it, we've given it to you guys. So
And this
um,
is Jenna's baby
this is my baby.
project. I mean, there's all of these cases tug at our heartstrings big time, but this one, I mean, it's really gotten Jenna, and she's, I mean, around the clock checking and updating and trying to go down there and search. And God love you, you have stayed on the pulse of this story.
Yeah, I just, it's like I feel we've talked about this before. I feel for her. She's a mom and her kids and this husband of hers. And it's crazy, right? Like you heard about this case back in January and then trickling of like whispers have come out and now there's some serious stuff going on. So,
Yeah, don't you think, sorry, one more
no,
thing, that
yeah.
this would have been such a bigger story if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic? Like this is a salacious story that normally would be on the headlines, at least in Southern California, and I rarely hear about it.
You know what it is? I don't know if it's the pandemic or whatever, and I've spoken to this before. I think that it's the fact that the family's being loud is why it's getting the attention it's getting because her family has not stopped trying
Yeah.
to rally outside of the police station to get more information or to get them to be doing more doing press conferences, doing any interview. I think that they're giving the opportunity, they're doing it. And I think that's a big thing. And I think once there was, and I feel like as a society we get sucked into these the husband did it type cases, and
Yeah.
so I don't know, but
Maybe we're becoming desensitized. Like Lacey Peterson was the most shocking one, and now, unfortunately, like you hear about shootings all the time, it's somewhat, it's not as shocking. You know,
yeah,
we're kind of used to it.
which is terrible.
Yeah.
So the last time that we had given an update on this case, it was right when Chula Vista Police kind of came out with another press release saying that they had partnering with the NCIS and the FBI, and that also they're using the Cold Case Foundation, which is that guy Billy Little. It's his foundation, and I feel like they're using it as like a family liaison to kind of keep them in the loop and understanding because he is a former investigator, so can kind of shed some light with the family, like what's going on, why are they doing these certain things. But overall the are still keeping things pretty tight-lipped. But two things have recently come out. So a couple weeks ago, or maybe shorter than that, it came out that Maya's husband Larry had previous gang affiliations back in his teen years, and who knows if that has stayed with him over the years or not. But when he was 17, he stabbed someone, and there was like this whole thing of where they thought it might have been either an initiation situation or it was because that person was in a rival gang. I don't really know too much about it because he was a juvenile. But the article from that time said a fight the police say was gang related left one teenager hospitalized with a stab wound. They talk about where it was when 3 young men drove up and got in a fight with the teen and his friends. Police believe that the 15-year-old that was stabbed the older youth several. Oh, wait, sorry. Police believe that a 15-year-old stabbed the older youth several times and drove off with his 2 companions. He was later arrested and booked into a juvenile hall on suspicion of assault with a deadly weapon. Um,
So
so
this was in 1997, the height of gangs. Like this is when both of us were, well, I was in high school, maybe you weren't.
I don't remember.
And we there's lots of gangs in Southern California, and we've said before, Chula Vista, there's lots of gangs down there. It's very close to the border. And if you don't know, one of the things that happens in these gangs is you have to be initiated or jumped in, which means you either are attacked by a group of people beating you up and you have to stand your ground, or you have to go kill somebody, hurt somebody. And that's what this sounds like, because it's two
Yeah.
teenagers. It's a stabbing in a next to a thrifty drugstore. Like, that's a story, unfortunately, I've heard a lot, or I used to hear a lot of when I was in high school.
Yeah, and then it's interesting because I couldn't really find anything about like whether I mean you were not going to advertise it probably, right? But like if he stayed in contact with these friends of this gang or whatever, but that's interesting that his past, because you're looking at someone who could be possibly connected to a crime like this. You want to see what their history and past history is. And so the fact that he was involved in a stabbing at a young age is problematic.
And you don't just leave a gang. I mean,
Right.
you can try. I had a friend that was in one, and they had to move across the country in the middle of high school to for their safety. It's no joke. These gangs have factions all over the country, and they can find people. And um, that's really fishy to me. That he's still living in the same area. He has to see those people.
Well, and it's crazy too because he was in I don't know what branch of the government he was in. I would assume somewhere around the Navy or something that would work with the Navy because I pulled up, he has a service record and it talks about like medals that he's received. And he was like a sharpshooter in some sort of the military branch of some sort. But so it's interesting, like, don't you have to go through background checks and stuff? I don't know. It's just
No, not for the
interesting.
military. Are you kidding?
No, you just
Think of how
sign
many
up.
people say, "I'm going to send you to the military."
Yeah, no,
You
true
know,
that.
it's a last ditch effort for a lot of people. Yeah, there's lots of people in the military with
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. You're right.
a
So
past.
then, most recently on May 7th, investigators executed another search warrant on Maya Millette's home that she shared with Larry and their kids. And they were seen with police dogs searching a vehicle as well inside of the home and taking things out of the home, all while they were wearing full tactical gear. And the Chula Vista Police Department spokesperson will not give details to what actually promoted this search or what they were looking for, just to maintain the integrity of the case. It's kind of their line right now, is they're not telling us anything. But this is where it gets really interesting. 2 days before this search warrant was executed, Larry must have gotten wind of what was happening because, well, let me tell you why. So Larry was given a temporary gun violence restraining order. I had no idea what the hell that means. So,
Yeah,
what
what is
it
that?
a gun violence restraining order prohibits an individual from possessing or buying guns, ammunition, or magazines. So, the documents where all this comes from show that Larry is accused of possessing illegal assault weapons and unregistered firearms.
He's still in a
Um,
gang.
yeah, right. Well, then
That's all they use.
it gets more interesting. So, like I said, he must have gotten wind of this because he gave away several firearms. And when he was being questioned by police, he will not say where these firearms are.
And gave away, who's going to hide that many firearms?
Yeah,
Gang
right.
members,
No, I know. That's what,
criminals.
yeah. So, in this document with this search warrant and all that was says that there was a photo, and I don't know where this photo came from or how it was obtained, but talks about a photo that was found that has a picture of 16 firearms, 4 US passports, a government ID card, and several high capacity magazines and hundreds of rounds of ammunition on a kitchen counter with none other than his 4-year-old also standing on that kitchen counter. So the petition quoted saying that the danger consists of children having access to firearms, possession of illegal assault weapons, possession of unregistered firearms, allowing a third party to possess firearms without a legal transfer and recent purchase of firearms, subsequent to the execution of a search warrant of his home where illegal firearms were seized. So it almost sounds like they got wind of this picture, then gave this restraining order and a search warrant to follow, I would assume, to maybe collect things. My only hope is that this might lead to removing the children from his care.
Yes, why are they still with him?
I don't know. But it's also like you have 5 people in your family. Why do you only have 4 passports? Did you ditch her Maya's passport somewhere? Like, we're just, does he know she's not coming home? Like, do you know what I mean? Something like that small
This
is,
was all laid out on a kitchen counter,
mhm.
and you could you
Well, I didn't
see
see
just
it.
passports? Oh,
I didn't see
you
it. It was just as the quote from the search warrants
got
or
it, got
I'm
it.
sorry, the what is it?
Affidavit or
Thank you.
something?
Yeah. So it described this photo that the
I
investigators had
would not have
received.
even thought about that there was one less passport, Jenna. Whoa,
Isn't that
that's
crazy?
very interesting.
It's crazy. So then in response to this, Larry had sent a text message, I believe, to like Fox News or something. And it says, quote, all my firearms were purchased legally. I'm a law-abiding citizen and veteran. My rights have been violated numerous times, especially my Second and Fourth Amendments. Also, I would like to add that I have showed no aggression or posed no risk that would prohibit me from owning or possessing firearms. It's our constitutional right as Americans to be able to protect our family from all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That's fine. Just you don't need 18,
Yeah,
you
right. Or
know.
with your 4-year-old right next to them.
And unregistered and no serial numbers,
I
like that's a
mean,
very
they're miss.
convenient statement.
So then when they went to seize all this stuff, I think they said that there was like 18 that they couldn't find. 18
Of
guns.
course. If you're
So
hiding weapons, then no, your rights should be taken away. That's
I
dangerous.
just really want the kids to be at this point to be removed because it's like you're dealing with someone who it does not seem like a safe person to have children around.
And they're so close to the border.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
have no doubt that they have unmarked cars watching,
I
and
hope
who
so.
knows, they might have the house bugged, and clearly they're being very quiet because they're working very hard and building some sort of
I
case.
don't even know that they're staying at the home though, because there's all this chatter from like neighbors and stuff that have been saying that it doesn't look like they'd been staying there, that maybe they were staying somewhere else to like have more privacy or something. So I don't even know.
Hmm.
But I have all the pictures of the affidavits and stuff that lists like all the different firearms and stuff that he supposedly had or that they're looking for. So we'll put it all on like Maya's section of our website probably within the next like day or so. So you guys can check it out if you so are interested. But I'm just hoping again, more steps to the right in the right direction, hopefully to figure out what happened to her.
Yeah, absolutely. It's time, and I feel like they're closer. I
I
hope
do
so.
too. I feel like every little thing helps.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get to the next case. This is coming out of Salida, Colorado, and so there's this married couple, Suzanne Morphew, 49 years old, and Barry Morphew, 53. They've been married for 26 years. They have two daughters, Mallory and I think Macy. And they had this beautiful $1.62 million home in Salida, Colorado, which is just south of Denver. And it does seem from a few reports that Suzanne and her husband were under some financial strain with family problems leaving her scared. Um, that was kind of the last thing that some people heard from her because on Mother's Day of 2020, she went on a bike ride, according to Barry, and was never seen again. So, this case just gets weirder and weirder. Jenna, tell us what happened.
Yeah, so I feel like it's like the same situation that we were just talking about, right? Like a wife just goes, it's
Yeah.
crazy. So like you said, on Mother's Day was it's not September. Mother's Day on Sunday, May 10th, 2020. Susanna apparently went on a bike ride alone and then just didn't seem to return. The locals in her area last saw her on May 8th. And then when a neighbor realized that she had never returned from said bike ride, then she reported Suzanne missing. The next day on May 11th, police had launched a large scale search of the area around Salida, and they had drones and cadaver dogs, and there was no sign of her. That first night, they did find her bike, but didn't really share the details of like what condition it was in or where exactly they found it. And then a few days later, there was reports that police had found, quote, a personal item belonging to Morphy. They didn't share again any more details. It later comes out that people think that was her bike helmet. But I don't know why that would be
Oh.
so. I don't know. That seems like speculation. I haven't seen anything that says this is actually what it was. It seems like it's speculation. But I don't know why they wouldn't just say we found her bike helmet, unless I don't know. Again, it's kind of interesting. But at the time all this was going on, police had commented that the likelihood of some sort of animal attack really didn't seem like it was a low risk kind of situation. And then Barry, her husband, during this weekend had allegedly been staying at a hotel room over the weekend, and he said that he was working on a landscaping job over that Mother's Day weekend. So he says he wasn't there. She was by herself. No one's
He's
seen
he's
her.
been interviewed a few times because I heard him say something else, but
I think it's changed a little bit. Yeah.
so this guy Barry, he's a building contractor. Well, I read two things. I heard that he was a building contractor, and then I read that he was a landscaping
Landscaper.
boss.
Yeah.
And he was in Denver, according to him, on Mother's Day, and he was attending a volunteer firefighter training course. So I don't know if he
Which,
was
side note, they haven't confirmed that. The police department hasn't said, yeah, he was here. So that's also like,
Interesting. Okay. So that was happening allegedly in Denver. So he stayed in a Holiday Inn Express in Denver, which is 150 miles away from their house in Salida. Um, that's not a crazy drive though. It is possible. However, I saw him on film. Somebody was recording him without his knowledge, and he said, "I was in Denver until 9 p.m. that night." Until 9 p.m. Okay, like
why does
that
it?
was a
Yeah.
weird thing to say.
Like,
Until 9 p.m. because there's so often these criminals just let certain things out about things that they've done. Allegedly, there's no proof that he's done anything, but his behavior has been real strange. Jenna, were you going to say
no, I was gonna
something?
say, I feel like it's like these slip of the tongues because they know what
Yeah.
time something happened to her. So he's like, but I wasn't there. And it's like, oh, but how do you know? We covered something else like that where it was like a time situation, and you're like, but how did you know what was going on during that time? Like, come
Yeah.
on, you idiots.
And Chris Watts too. We've watched this happen quite a few times
All
where
in
they kind of
Colorado.
go back. Oh my goodness, I know. So um yeah, so on this video he says he was in Denver until 9 that night, and then right after he said that he said, they said there had been mountain lion sightings near our house during that time, and he just kept trying to sell the whole mountain lion theory, which is strange. I've been in Colorado several times during this year, and they've had like unusual weather, like blizzards, tons of rain, and it's just not, you're not going to see lots of those animals out during that kind of weather. House that we spoke of earlier, this beautiful big home that they had together, Barry decides to sell within 2 weeks of her going missing. And he also sold another plot of land that they had owned together. However, on May 19th, the house was held by police as part of their investigation, thank goodness. And cadaver dogs picked up the scent of human remains near the couple's home, but so far that's all that they've released.
Mhm.
And then the day after the police seized the house, Barry made a Facebook video that's been talked about a great deal, so much so that we think it's really important to play it. You can watch it on our YouTube channel or listen to it now, and then we'll discuss it.
Oh, Suzanne, if anyone is out there that can hear this, that has you, please, we'll do whatever it takes to bring you back. We love you. We miss you. Your girls need you. No questions asked. However much they want, I will do whatever it takes to get you back. Honey, I love you. And I want you back so bad.
Okay, so now that we have seen that, the first thing that I noticed is his head shaking? Because the entire time, virtually, he's speaking, he's shaking his head side to side, meaning no. And that's something you learn in psychology, that you listen to what someone says, but you even more so watch their body. Because if
Right.
somebody is saying, "No, I would never do that," and nodding yes, it's a tell. It's a micro expression that they're lying. Another thing is blinking too much, and he was blinking a lot when he would tell certain things that were clearly, allegedly, don't sound true to me.
The first part where he like, what did he say? Something about them, someone having him or something. He like pauses almost like he knew what he said is total bullshit. He's like,
Yes.
and then he like came back. I was like, where did you go? Where'd you go just now? So weird.
It's very, very interesting. And so, according to the Daily Mail, who spoke with a body language expert specialist named Patty Wood, she said, quote, "We see pain in his face, but notice it doesn't move across his face and change as he speaks, but seems set like a mask, which
Mm.
reveals that he put on or faked the pained expression," which is so true. When you're like actually upset, it shows, but it looks so put on by him, don't you think?
Oh yeah, the first thing I said to you, I said, this is so painful to watch because it feels
Yes,
so inauthentic. Like it just
exactly.
doesn't, you can tell he's just, which is so sad. I mean, after 26 years of being someone, you can't fake like a little bit of allegedly a little bit of emotion. I don't know.
Oof. So, after two search warrants were carried out on the home of Suzanne and Barry, finally, on May 6th, 2021, Barry was finally charged with first-degree homicide, tampering with evidence, and attempting to influence a public servant. Um, these are interesting charges. Like the murder, of course, tampering with evidence, he must have moved something, cleaned something, and then um, influencing a public servant, that could be anything from trying to pay somebody off, trying to
Mhm.
ask your friend in the police force to do something.
Yeah.
It seems like they've been very busy coming up with these charges,
Mhm.
and good for them. So he was arrested, and he spoke publicly, Barry, for the first time since May 17th, when he released that video. And during the 25-minute phone call with Fox 21, he said that he and his wife, quote, "have been in love since 1988, and she's the love of my life," end quote. And then he said, "and I continue to search for her every day, and I will until I find her. I promise, and I promised my girls that." During this call, Barry considered the possibility that Suzanne would have been involved in a tragic roadway accident or was attacked by an animal, like he had said earlier, or even stopped by, according to this report, someone who knows her well, he said. "I'm afraid of what is out there," he told the station. "People don't know the truth, so they're gonna think what they're gonna think." That's a loaded statement.
Mhm.
And then, quote, "I've never been asked to do a polygraph. There's nothing that I am hiding. I have given 30 hours of testimony to the FBI and the CBI. I've answered every question, every single question," end quote. Okay, well, then there's a reason that you're in jail. If they've asked
Yeah.
all those questions, you did not provide the right
Right.
answers.
Something happened. You said something. So yeah, so obviously what you had just talked about, Barry is saying things like an animal attack or someone she knew, which I feel like that's really interesting. He's like, someone she knew.
Knew well.
Yeah, it's like, what do you, again, another little like slip of the tongue, in my
Stopped
opinion.
by someone you knew well. In my opinion, that's trying to allude to another guy, like, oh, she was with other people, someone she knew well. That's very strange.
Yeah. So that's what he's trying to say has happened to her. That's really the only other theories kind of out there. But so far, everything's pointing to Barry. Obviously, he was just arrested. So it gets really interesting of like what they possibly have on him is it was reported that one of his coworkers, Jeff Puckett, met him at the hotel where he was that weekend, and he said,
Mm-hmm.
quote, he found towels and a pile of mail and said the room smelled of chlorine. I got there Sunday night and the room smelled like chlorine real bad. It was his room and he'd taken a shower. His towels were all over the floor. And then a manager from the hotel had reported to the Daily Mail that housekeeping does not use chlorine to clean the guest rooms, like at all. So obviously something he's brought into that room. And then thus the connection is they're saying maybe he cleaned up something and that's why he's smelling of like bleach type products.
And yeah, and then cleaning up in the hotel room was pretty smart. However, what do you do with those towels? Like they can go back to housekeeping and see were the all the towels accounted for or
Probably, yeah, but I bet you they didn't even get that far, right? Because he probably wasn't even, I wonder if all those towels had already been washed by that point. But that's a great point. Like if there was something on it to connect him to it, I mean, it's like these people who allegedly commit these crimes. They do some things that you're like, well, that was actually, I mean, if you want to get away with murder, that was really smart. And then you're like, wow, you're a flippin' idiot because
yeah.
you left your dirty fucking towels on the floor. Like, what a man, right? Leaving your dirty towels on the floor. It just can't.
Taken down by the dirty towels on the ground. It's like
Such karma, right? Like,
totally.
yeah. So, anyways, I did a little bit of digging too, and I found that supposedly cameras from their home were never in working order. And when they moved in, they didn't fix them or attempt to fix them. Maybe it was something they were going to do down the road, but the cameras at their house weren't in working order. So that means Barry would know that, right? And could do, if he did anything, could do something around the home without being seen by like a Ring doorbell or whatever video cameras are around there. And then
Right.
it's also some speculation that his phone was turned off during this time. So again, like some things you're doing, you're smart if you want to get away with a crime, some things you're not so much.
Yeah.
Also, sources have alluded to there being a lot of things kind of being close to the vest to protect the investigation. And it's also very interesting that you'll notice not a ton of the family, like for instance, Maya Millete, I said, right? They're going on every single platform they can to talk about what's going on. They've, little by little have released more information, personal information to help. In this case, it's been a year, and I think only a few times the families come out with something, which to me says that they're probably in on whatever police are doing. They know that they're on a track to finding some sort of solution to this situation. Um, so I think the family kind of knows what's going on, and thus, and even what you're about to get into, some of the sisters' comments, she'll give a little, but then she's like, I'm not going to say anything else. Like, so don't you think that kind of would say that they're involved in whatever's going on?
100%. I think that they've been coached or told by law enforcement to not say much, and they're listening, thank goodness, because
Yeah.
lots of people don't listen. So I think that they realize how important it is that they do keep quiet while still, coming out and saying how they feel.
Mhm.
So, as Jenna said, two of Suzanne's siblings have been really vocal about the case. Her brother, whose name is Andy Mormon, and in May of 2020, shortly after she went missing, he said he definitely thinks that there was foul play involved. And this was like almost right away. He said, I don't think she ever got on a bicycle. I think that was planted evidence. So I think he's referring to the whole bike story.
Like maybe she didn't take that bike ride.
Yeah, I don't know what he means by that was planted evidence. Maybe he's saying that he just put the bike out there and said she went for a bike ride, but he's basically saying, I don't think that that ever happened, the whole bike ride and all of that. And then she has a sister named Melinda, who was so heartbreaking to see her interviewed because she misses her nieces so much, those two girls who haven't been in contact with her. And I mean, no, it's all of that's understandable. I can't imagine what those girls are going through. Of course, you don't want to believe your father had anything to do with it. So they're firmly on his side. They believe in his innocence. When he was brought in the first time into the court, they both made like a heart symbol to him, and they were crying and trying to support each other. So all the way around, for her siblings, for her children, it's just terrible. And now ripping apart the family even further. that, the girls, it's kind of like her siblings don't believe the same thing as her children. Um,
It's just so hard. Like if you're gonna do, if let's say he did something, you didn't think about your daughters for 1 minute about what you're doing to them, and what if you get caught? Now you've taken both parents away from your children. Like, good job.
yeah, it's so selfish. Her sister Melinda said through tears that she hadn't been able to contact the girls, and that she just really hopes that they come around, and just said, "I love you." She even said, "I love your father. He did a very, very bad thing, but I love your mom." Just being so open and saying, like, you can believe whatever you want, just I want to be in your life and all of
Right.
that. So heartbreaking. She said, quote, "I think life happens. I think pressures and stresses in life. I think financial pressure bears in on people very heavily.
Mm-hmm.
It creates an atmosphere of discontent and strife, and sometimes living beyond your means is a very hard thing to do." So there you go. She's, without directly saying she thinks it's financial.
Which we've
And
seen so many times that pressure and stress brings some people to a breaking point.
and like you said, he can't help but just come out and basically say what he's doing. Like, right after this, he sells the house and that land. Like, that does not look good.
Yeah.
It's that looks, the first thing when I first heard this story and I heard that he did that, I was like, oh, he needs money. That's
Mm-hmm.
somebody who is absolutely desperate for money for one reason or another.
Yeah.
Melinda went on to say, quote, "Learning to be content with what you have is a very powerful thing in this life, and it brings great peace. And I don't think Barry and Suzanne had gotten there yet. That's what I think kind of happened, and I can't really say more than that." Oh, so it seems like it was a known thing, the financial, the living beyond the means. And then finally, she said, quote, "The Friday before Mother's Day, my sister had sent me a text message that morning. It was very lengthy. It was very powerful. It was very revealing. She had been ready to share some things close to her chest. She said she was scared." How many times have we heard that?
It's just so hard. So sad. And then it's like I feel for this sister, right? Because she probably got this text and probably, I mean, who knows now what kind of survivor's guilt's going on, right?
Ugh,
Like if like I didn't do something, or I wish I would have. I wish the what if fans, or just it's a
yeah,
lot.
so terrible. Over this past weekend, the family of Suzanne put out a statement, and in part it read, "In the coming months, we will be forced to come to grips with the details of a murder that is still unimaginable. I am constantly hounded by the question, how did we get here? How does a man take the life of his wife and the mother of his daughters? How do character flaws turn you into a murderer? Is it nature or nurture? Nothing I say here will change minds, and I will leave it to the experts of FBI to outline at the trial the cunning personality traits of Barry Morphew. As we look toward the prosecution and a trial, we can only hope for a full confession and learn the whereabouts of Suzanne. I doubt that will happen, and we all will be left with hearing horrific details that were perpetrated by pure evil."
Mm.
Oof. So I think they know a lot more, and I think they're gearing up for this trial. And once again, just begging this guy, like, have some decency and at
Mm-hmm.
least tell us what happened. Don't make your children go through that trial. Like, talk about narcissism. It's crazy.
It's so sad. Like, do the right thing. Just do the right thing. You already messed up. Do the right thing. So we kind of talked about it before, but just a few days shy of the year anniversary, Barry was charged with first-degree murder, even though her body still hasn't been found. So they obviously have something that they feel is strong enough to kind of move forward, as we've said.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, we don't know precisely what prompted Barry his arrest, since the affidavit is currently sealed. But at a press conference on May 5th, the Shafi, is that how you say it? Chaffee County?
Oh, Chaffee.
Chaffee, there we go. Chaffee County Sheriff John Speets. Okay.
Spezzi?
Speetsy.
He's
I'm
Italian.
so good at pronouncing these. Anyways, they issued a 135 plus search warrants, conducted in excess of 400 interviews, and chased at least 1,400 tips. So that's what they've released, but we have no details of what exactly all of that came down to.
I also read that in total, 4,000 hours of work have been put into this case. So this police department's been awesome and on it right away. And it seems like they're building a very good case.
Yeah, and we like you said, you mentioned all the charges before, the murder and tampering and the influence of the public servant, and he was advised of those charges at the court appearance on that Thursday morning. He was wearing a face mask along with everyone else in the courtroom and appeared to be very calm as he was given the okay by the judge to have contact with his daughters. The judge approved his request as long as the communication remains civil. I don't really know what that means, but like, I don't think you
If
would
they start
request to,
yelling,
I don't know, they would request to have a conversation with each other if they weren't going to be civil, but whatever.
who knows what happens when they start talking. I can't imagine.
I mean, I think they're going to be in his corner until they're seeing the evidence of what's going on. And I'm sure the police aren't telling them because they are still in his corner. So they don't want to they have to give discovery at some point, but.
So what I would imagine comes next is they build this case, they present him with everything they have and say, look, do you want to go? I would assume Colorado has the death penalty. Do you want to go to the death row, or do you want to tell us where her body is and get life without parole? It's going to be some sort of plea deal. It doesn't sound like he's going to take it. He seems very arrogantly
Calm.
yeah, and like he's gonna get away with something, and we can tell he's not very bright, so that's not gonna happen.
Listen, I think these guys in both of these cases with Maya and with Barry and Suzanne, I think these guys go, well, they can't find her body, but it doesn't mean anything. They'll still try you if they have enough evidence to show that you've done something and she hasn't been seen for a year.
It's much, much harder, but times are a-changing. I can't tell you how many wonderful news stories I've heard of, 70-year-old men that have been found that raped a girl 40 years ago. They found them through genealogy, and they're going to jail, and nothing makes me happier. It's justice is getting better and better with technology.
Yeah. So we'll keep you updated if and when things start to progress in this case. I don't know when the next phases of things are happening, but
I think June. I think the first week of June.
Everything's in June. I swear. So, have you been watching anything that we need to share with people? Anything good? I feel like I haven't been on at all this week with watching stuff.
Ooh, there's a few, Netflix dropped a few documentaries. There's a documentary on HBO about the opiate crisis, and that is really good. I started that. Other than that, I'm still listening to OC Swingers, the podcast, and I haven't had time for anything else.
Yeah, I caught up with the newest episode of Mayor of Easttown. It's getting good. So I feel
I've watched 2 episodes, by the way. I like it.
If you can get past the first episode, it gets better each episode, I think. And
I
love freaking the guy. What's his button? Evan Peterson? I'm forgetting his last name right now, but my American Horror Story guy. Yeah. I love him. So there's that. And then if you don't already, please make sure you subscribe so you can follow, comment, share, tell friends, send us some love, send us some requests, whatever you want to do. So do that below, or go to our website where all of our sources are, and you can also contact us there.
Yes. So thanks for listening, everybody, and be safe and trust your gut.
Okay, see you later.
Adios.
Bye.